Hi, it's Jason from Fraser Valley Rose Farm. We have been in the retail nursery business for about 3 years now, and every year we do a little update video like this. So while I definitely want to show you some of the roses and gardens behind us, this really is a talk about how we've done, how things have turned out for us. And our business is at a bit of a crossroads right now, I have to say. It is a good crossroads, it's a good thing, but there are some decisions to be made, some changes to come that I wanted to talk to you guys about because we've always included the YouTube audience in what we do here, and I want to show you some of the suggestions that you have made to us about how we can change our nursery here to be more friendly to visitors and so on, that we have actually implemented, and they have made a huge difference in what we do here. So let's go have a look at some of those changes, and then I want to talk about how we've done and the future of our nursery. One of the things that channel commenters said again and again when we asked for feedback on the farm from previous videos is that visitors have to have a spot to sit down and enjoy the landscape. So everywhere that we can now, we've stuck in things like these blue Adirondack chairs that we have at the back here, but also, and I'm going to swing around, in a way that hopefully will not make people dizzy as I spin the camera, but everywhere we've gone, we've stuck in benches, we've stuck in picnic tables, they're along the edges of the property. Any place where we have a sliver of shade, that's something else that people talked about, was that people have to have a shady spot to sit down. So again, we have these picnic tables in the wide open here, but against the back fence there where you see the big oak tree, underneath that, another bench. We've stuck up patio umbrellas. Lisa went and sourced some of these bistro tables. Now, I'm not going to lie, she usually finds these things at secondhand stores and through Facebook postings. But they all came with, we added the umbrellas to keep some shade for them. And so it gives people sort of a nice sitting area and resting area within the gardens. And speaking of shade, I think I showed you this project a few times, is the sort of pergola area that we built here, right in the wide open, but it is going to be a home for our climbing roses and doubles up as a place where we can meet groups that want to have a tour and take them around the gardens. And it offers a little bit of shade, so I've gone ahead and thrown in, you can see that the delphiniums are already starting to bloom here, but I also have some foxgloves coming up in here as well, take advantage of a little bit of that respite from the sun. And then climbing roses like Compassion here, which I don't see too much on the market anymore, but it is a phenomenal climber and just getting its legs here in the garden, starting to throw up some large new shoots, but that should be impressive as we're able to train it up onto this structure here. And this gives people, again, a place to sit and enjoy the gardens. Another thing that we've put in this year, and I think you may have seen a previous version of us trying to be friendly towards families, is we had sort of a mini golf course makeshift out here. Well, we've replaced that with a large set of swings here. This thing is a beast. It's probably, 16 feet tall, big and heavy, and will of course support children or adults. And it has a nice view as you swing of the blooming rose field out there, so that's kind of nice. On a side note, one quick lesson that we should have learned before, but are learning now, is that if we have something in bloom during the rose season, people will want to buy it. And so this one here is just red valerian. It's pretty common in Britain and so on, and almost considered weedy at times, but it puts on such a show here that we do get lots of requests for it as we have people come through the garden. So we definitely need to have those ready for sale. And once again, little benches underneath the trees. This is our only really naturally shaded part of the garden, so we took advantage of it. You saw those bridges last year when we built them, and this is sort of a trial bed that we put together with some of the traded roses that we got in from the US. Again, another bridge, but again behind there we have a picnic table, umbrella, another picnic table in behind there. If I swing around here underneath the crabapple trees, another bench, and these gardens have been improved greatly. And this went in last year just as an idea of trying to make this area more appealing and more cohesive. And we're starting to see that some of the perennials are looking good in there. We've got a nice hydrangea back there with sort of variegated, I think that's a variety called Marizii. We have that Kiringoshima palmata, which is Japanese yellow wax bells. It looks really good there, and suffered so badly in the sun that it's nice to move it here. This one here is, I think, a variety called, or a plant called Saruma henryi, kind of unusual. And once again, hostas, that's a sorbaria. The somewhat spent blooms of, this is allium, and I think it's allium Christophii or Sherburtii. I think it's Christophii, but gorgeous in sort of those fireworks of the alliums. And then, of course, we tuck roses wherever we can. This one being Commandant Beau Repair, with its wildly striped flowers and a really nice habit, relaxed. Makes a kind of a nice showcase in this kind of dark corner of the garden. Just completing out a view of the woodland area here, and please don't mind the weeds as I go through. That's something that we haven't quite caught up on. But this bed here we put in to have some conifers and some interest sort of in this darker area of the garden. And so what we have is we have a cryptomeria over here. I think this is Thuya fire chief and an umbrella pine and so on. In the background here, you'll probably see some hydrangeas going into bloom. It's a good spot for them. And then jumping out from the darkness over here is the bright, bright leaves of Aralia Sun King. Isn't that beautiful? That is a stunning color. Definitely worth a spot in the garden. As I swing back towards the greenhouses here, in addition to the advice that you've given us, more seating, more places to sit down, more shady spots, you also gave us the advice that we should improve our presentation to look a little bit more retail. And so I'm going to bring you into the retail area now, and I hope that you will see that we have upgraded the appearance of that. So yes, we are still very much a backyard informal mom and pop nursery, but we built this bench here to be our sort of checkout area. And I have to give you full disclosure here. The cash register is something that Lisa picked up secondhand for like $25 or something like that. And it's really more or less just a prop. We process most of our transactions through Square, so that's a separate terminal. But what it does is sort of having this area together here with the counter and the register is it kind of tells people this is where you go to check out your plants. And that's something that people gives them a little bit more comfort, and it's familiar to sort of a retail look. And so if they go into a real nursery, which we are not in a certain way, this is kind of the stuff they will see. This signals to them, boy, look at this. There's some hard goods here. There's some bags of fertilizer. There's some knickknacks and fun things. Swinging over to this side here, you know, garden tools on racks. Now, of course, the racks were secondhand too. You can see at the top there, they say they're for fitness, which we'll have to cover up. But they have shovels and gloves and all that type stuff. And over on this side here, we even put together kind of a little, I'm going to call it an honor bar, where we have little snacks and goodies that you can pick out, some drinks for a hot day. If you want to run a Keurig, you can get yourself one of those. And it's just kind of a nice thing where people can go out to those bistro tables, enjoy a drink, enjoy a snack, and it puts us, you know, more like the standard or traditional nursery or garden center in the way people feel about us when they walk into this greenhouse. So at the time I take this video, it is the end of June, so we still have a few roses hanging out, not sold through for the year, and we'll continue to sell those through the month of July and August, and probably still okay to put those into the ground, especially big roses like this, even into September. So we're not panicked about how much we have here. Isn't that lovely? Just as I pass it by here, that's the variety called Distant Drums as a rose, and it has that beautiful blend of sort of apricot in the center, but mauve on the outside. Beautiful blend. It can come off kind of even brown at times, which is kind of neat. And just stepping into our greenhouse here, you can see that we've doubled down on having lots and lots of perennials available for customers, just as add-ons for the roses. So of course people do come here for roses, but I grew perennials for many years, so it's something I'm capable of doing. And a lot of these are grown from cuttings and from seed and so on. You can see some wilt there, so maybe I need to get back in here with some watering. But I did want to make the point, just really quickly here, that in some cases perennials can be easier as a business than roses. Like, have a look at these campanulas. I grew those from seed, like from February, and look how beautiful they are. I can command, you know, an easy $10, but probably more than that if I were comparing with other local retailers. And it just took me so much less time to get those to be a credible plant. Roses, on the other hand, are somewhat more than a year-long cycle to get them up to a credible or decent size. And obviously, most of these cuttings were taken last year around this time. They were put into 9-centimeter pots or 4-inch pots to overwinter, and then we potted them this spring, meaning that for them to grow into this size here, to become, you know, sort of borderline sizable enough to compare to other roses in the marketplace, it took us a full year. And in some cases, if we've had a little bit of mildew, we've cut them down, they can be a little bit small. It can actually be, you know, not credible compared to other roses. And so what we do is we wait until they're large enough to list them, but we don't have a separate growing area for our what we would call finished roses and unfinished roses, so they all live in this house together, and there's a little bit of explaining that we have to do. And that's probably a difference between us and, say, a retail nursery which only brings in ready to sell material. We're still growing our roses. But kind of the real secret sauce of our business, in a way, and it takes away a lot of concerns about our plants in the greenhouse, is that we can grow them in the field right in front of the customer, and they get to see it full size. So they're not making the judgment call based on those small roses in the greenhouse. They're looking at the roses out here, grown beautifully, grown large, and once they see it in full bloom and what it's going to do in the landscape, and sometimes it does exactly what you want in the landscape, and then sometimes it does this, where it's kind of like boom and puts out big arms and is kind of lax, and so on. And people can see that, which is wonderful. Like, they can make the decision based on what the plant will really do in the garden. Something like this, I mean, ballerina, obviously much loved rose, but once you show them those big clusters of flowers all around the base, but what's more, if you look up a little bit, that second flush coming in right behind us, very characteristic of the hybrid musks, is that it is preparing its next flush as it's finishing out its first one. So I will skirt this after those bloom out, but it won't be waiting long to have new blooms on the way. Now, this is by no means a full-on rose tour, but obviously can't pass by Julia Child without saying just how wonderful that is as a garden shrub. And people get it. You know, that's great. Got a great form. It's got great fragrance. It's very healthy. I don't see a touch of black spot on there. And then you can look around at other ones like this. Like, this is a mini here, and this one is called Apricot Clementine. And as a mini, you'd expect it to be small, but it actually is up to about, say in this case, about 3 feet of height, maybe 2.5, 3 feet of height, and just blooming its head off in a great color. People see that, and again, it answers their question about what they want to have in their garden. Over here, a variety called Liebezauber, which I have not changed the aspect ratio of my filming. I mean, it just is that big of a rose. It's so huge, sort of hand size, which, you know, makes it go a bit blousy or loose very quickly. But still, if somebody's looking for a very large rose, that might be the one that they would choose. And again, being able to see it in person like that means that people will make their decisions. Now, one downside of us using these for production as well is that then I have to cut it back. And I cut it back both for the health of the plant, but I also cut it back for propagation. So this one here, Glad Tidings, was a ball of color a week and a half ago. It's a little less impressive now, but you know, you mix your purposes, right? We had a very cool June, so we actually still have a few of the old garden roses in bloom right now. This is a centifolia or moss rose called Chapeau de Napoleon, or Napoleon's hat. And I love to show it to people because it just tells a great story of the old garden roses. And if you look at the buds of the plant, that's what I wanted to show you, is that those actually have a 3-pointed hat on there, which is sort of like why it's called Napoleon's hat, or Chapeau de Napoleon. It also has a really cool low growing habit, wonderful fragrance. I mean, it really does say everything you want to say about the charm of the old garden roses. Well, you guys have kind of been with us the entire way, so I don't mind sharing some of the business results with you. And I'll say this, May and June are the months when you really anticipate that your retail nursery sales will peak, and that will carry the rest of your year. And for May and June of this year, we saw a 30% increase in sales. So I would consider that good. I mean, we had a tough fiscal climate, let's say. A lot of people were worried about money, and they still came through for us. We still had a lot of visitors on the farm. It was a growth. Now, I do expect good growth in the first few years of a retail nursery being open, but it actually took a ton of effort to get that growth. I had to go out and visit a lot of garden clubs. I probably did 20 or 25 speaking engagements to the local garden clubs to get people out here and to try to market it. We did a lot on Facebook. So there was a lot of effort that went into getting that 30% in retail sales. Now here's hidden in the numbers of our business, here's the Crossroads portion I was talking about, is that while we saw a 30% increase in the retail business, our mail order business that we just push out in February across Canada, we do selling of mail order roses that way, it effortlessly increased, it doubled in size. So it went 100% increase on the mail order part of our business. And when I say effortlessly, I'm only talking about the marketing end of things. We made a single or a couple postings saying we have roses available for mail order. They cleaned us out pretty much within the first 20 days of the month, and then we were finished for the year, which was great. Now the effort came in trying to fill those orders, and I made a video not that long ago talking about the hazards of the mail order business and all of that, and we can talk about that a little bit more on upcoming videos. But the point here is that we have one part of our business that's growing by leaps and bounds, like, you know, very easily, and another part that it's taking a good amount of effort to get people, and it's not surprising, to get people to get in their cars from some distance away. Maybe you're an hour away in Vancouver, maybe you're an hour and a half away in Squamish or Richmond or someplace else further in the Lower Mainland. So you end up with having to convince people to take a long drive to get here, and we think we've made it worth it. Of course, you know, that was the point of all of the improvements that we've made here, and you want to see those improvements rewarded. But the idea was to get people to see this as worthwhile and to come out. We're hoping that we can improve the presentation over coming years to be credibly mentioned in the same breaths as the tulip festivals or the flower festivals that happen in the Lower Mainland. And so that would be the idea. But back to this Crossroads thing, if you have one part of your business that's growing leaps and bounds and another part that's, you know, taking a little more effort to do, what do you do? And I guess when you say Crossroads, you might think it's either or, like either we go retail or we go mail order. And of course there is a third path, which is you try to do both. And so far, at least in these early years of our business, we're talking about continuing to do both until the answer is very, very clear. With all the efforts that we've put in on presenting the farm, we're quite reluctant to, you know, stop doing that end of it. It gives us something to do. It actually agrees with our personalities quite a lot to do that work. But we are shifting the focus, not surprisingly, in our production and our propagation to put more plants into we're going with a larger 9-centimeter pot for shipping next year, and we are putting more of our plants into that with the idea that we can sell a lot more. We are actually probably going to launch a new website with it so that we can continue selling the mail order into our retail selling season. There was a point there where the online store was kind of mixed purpose. We're trying to sell the mail order and we're trying to sell the local stuff at the same time, and that caused some confusion on the website. So we're going to be dividing the websites next year. So that's one thing that we're thinking about. Anyway, I am interested to hear what you have to say about that kind of a business conundrum. Is how do you deal with the fact that one part of your business is growing so much faster than the other and could indeed outstrip it completely? Where do you go with that? And just while I'm gathering my thoughts here, I have had a chance to meet with Ben from Heirloom Roses last year. You saw that video, and he made the decision when they walked into that business of turning it into full-scale mail order nursery, and to great effect. I mean, obviously they're in the US market, different circumstances and different timing, but that worked out really, really well for them. I also had a good chance this weekend to meet with the folks from the Rosarium Garden Center up in Spokane, and they made the opposite decision. When they walked into that business, it was a small-scale own route mail order nursery, and one of the things that they decided after trying it out was to let go of the mail order part of their business, to sell that off and to focus on the retail and in-person business, which has worked out really well for them as well. So it's not like there's a right answer or a wrong answer, and certainly it's going to depend on what we do right here, but I would be interested to hear your views on that. While we're at it, if there's anything else you think of for our presentation here that you think we need to improve, I would love to have your suggestions on that. One thing that I know we're going to have to improve over time is our washroom facilities, which right now is very rustic. It's like a porta potty type situation, and we would really like to upgrade that so that when people come here, it feels a bit more like when you would go to a winery or something like that. They might have a more upscale washroom set up for their customers, and that could become kind of a limiting factor over a length of time. Parking is also another issue. We ran into it for the first time this weekend, where our parking lot on that was full. I mean, it had 7-8 cars in it, and then there were 3 or 4 more out on the streets. And then if there had been more people show up, more groups come in, where do they go? And we may have to think about how do we open up the main parking driveway to the house or whatever. So we'll have to think about that as well. Anyway, thanks so much for coming along on this tour of our 3-year update in the nursery business. I hope you found it useful. And if you have any questions, please drop those into the comments below the video. Thanks so much.